Hello, good people. This is Dr. Lou. So I'm back to finish up the second part of our series on the history of Christianity um, in Africa. I have already explored in part one some major texts that explore African theology, some major key monographs that study African Christian theology within the African culture, within the African context. We've also explored some key texts on liberation theology in South Africa. So, to bring this to a close, there are about 6 books that I have left that I want to bring your attention to. These books are critical. They deal with a very specific writer, two specific writers, the work of two specific writers who have had a major impact on the theological development in Africa. So, I'm talking about the work of Mercy Emba Uduyoye, who's an esteemed African feminist uh, and women theologian. She has written many works. I want to bring your attention to this book, Introducing African Women's Theology. Introducing African Women's Theology. This is a work where she explores the experience of women in Africa. How women, African women, have theologized. She explores like topic like women's word about God, Jesus the divine human. So that is Christology, and what does it mean to be human from the perspective of African women theologians. So this is a work on religious anthropology. Then she has another chapter on ecclesiology, so okay, the impact of women and women theologian on the role of the church and society. Then there are 2 additional chapters on hospitality and spirituality, and the last one on eschatology. This is a great work that begs for greater attention. Another work that's very important, which Mercy Amba Oduyore edited with Musembi R.A. Kanyowo. It's called the will to arise, women tradition in church in Africa. The will to arise, women tradition in church in Africa. It looks like this. This is the cover. I hope you'll be able to see. Yeah, women women tradition in church in Africa. So this book explores not only the theological ideas and perspective, but the roles of women, roles of African women in African churches. Okay, so the the book, it's a collection of essay. The first part describe the role of women, like I said before, in terms of culture, rites of passage in daily life, and their attitude towards birth, naming, marriage, and widowhood, polygamy, prostitution, and death. They are all explored in part one and part two of this book. The third part focuses on the church, right? It reviews the biblical attitude towards women and showing how African women can and should contribute to the life of the Christian church. So there are more than like 13, 14 contributors to this excellent work. I strongly recommend this book. Then the next work I want to, the next African theologian who's from Ghana, I want to commend you. Uh, it's it's Kwame Bidiako. So Kwame is probably one of the, I would say, one of the most influential African theologians in the 20th century. This is his major work, Theology and Identity. Theology and Identity, the impact of culture upon Christian thought in the second century in modern Africa. Theology and Identity, the impact of culture upon Christian thought in the second century in modern Africa. This is this was his dissertation for his second PhD. Dr. Bidiako holds two PhDs. One is from the University of Bordeaux, which he did in French literature, and the second one from the University of Aberdeen. Again, this was the result of his doctoral dissertation at the University of Aberdeen. Another important work that he produced is Christianity in Africa, the renewal of a non-Western religion. Again, this is a popular text. It's quite an innovative text because here he argues that not only Christianity is not a Western religion, in fact, the African culture has more common with Christianity than the Western culture. And he says that African cultural traditions paved the way for the entrance of God, for the entrance of Jesus in their respective territories, their respective contexts. Christianity in Africa, the renewal of a non-Western religion. Another important text I want to leave you with is this: Jesus in the Gospel in Africa, History and Experience. Jesus in the Gospel in Africa, in which this is a collection of essays that he has written over the years. He engages different topics, right? It's topics on about how should Africans understand Christianity in relation to African culture. He explores the lived experience of African within the Western mission context and the search for peace and liberation. Now, there are two last books that I want to bring your attention to because of the impact of Kwame Bidiako. So, two books on Kwame: his theology, what's called World Christianity. This is the field of study, and it's called World Christianity. So it's Kwame Bidiako, African Theology for World Christianity. Tim Hartman publishes this excellent work. Excellent work. Okay? He talks about his theological commitments. He talks about how we should rethink, Africans should rethink, not just African really, Christian in general, especially Christian thinkers and theologians. How should they rethink about Christian identity in light of African cultural identity and the shortcomings of colonialism in Africa and neo-colonialism, imperialism in Africa. Great book, right? The last one I want to bring your attention to is written by Sarah for a theme or for a time. Sarah, if you are listening to this podcast, I apologize for mispronouncing your name. It's Kwame Bidiako, an African Christian scholarship, right? Again, this is another excellent text, on the great Ghanaian theologian. Okay, guys, I hope this conversation was very helpful to you. I've posted three videos, instructional videos on dealing with the history of Christianity in Africa, and this is the last one.